This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and tonight we have none other than Crowbar, aka Devon Storm. He's wrestled for WWE, WCW, ECW, TNA, Ring of Honor, All Elite Wrestling. Not many people can say that. Former WCW Hardcore Champion, World Tag Team Champion, and Cruiserweight Champion, and now he's a physiotherapist and still wrestles. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Doing great, man. How you doing, dude?
Well, as I said, I'm recovering from a broken leg and subsequent infection, so it's too bad I don't live there. So you could help me
I know
with the
we could have
physio
worked out
aspect.
here. Yeah. So
I
sorry
did
to hear
see you
that,
at
man.
the
Those,
gym
yeah,
there.
very sorry.
Yeah, it's brutal, but any suggestions for
Uh,
recovery?
it's it's hard to tell now. Like you got the wild card going on with the infection, which always slows up the process. Usually a broken ankle, broken leg, they put the plates in, and it actually helps the healing process because you have that extra support of the hardware. But then when you throw an infection into the mix, it just complicates the matter. You'll be okay, but it's just gonna delay things. So I really don't know where you are in that process there. So it really wouldn't be responsible of me to give any kind of tips based on that because I really don't know
Yes.
where you are in that infection process.
Sadly, it's the hardware that actually gave me the infection, but the fans don't want to know about that. Let's just get right
Sure,
into
they do, my
the.
man.
No, they don't. As far as your training, I understand you were trained by Iron Mike Sharp, who I guess had an obsessive compulsive
Yes,
disorder. How was that?
Mike was great. Mike took it super seriously, and when I broke in, I was 17 years old, just turned 17, I believe. And so I had no experience whatsoever in pro wrestling. So I thought a lot of the stuff I saw was normal. So now, fast forward to 32 years later, if I go to the gym and work out, I wear shorts or sweats, maybe an old pair of tights, a t-shirt or a tank top. The thing that really sticks out about Mike when I look back in retrospect is Mike trained us like he was going out at like the Garden or like the Hartford Civic Center. Mike Sharp would show up, black boots, black trunks, no shirt on. Often he would actually wear the forearm brace. He would oil himself up and he would warm up just like he was famous for doing before going out there. And he would train us like he was having a match at Madison Square Garden, and that's a shoot. And then super neat guy, like very neat, really organized guy. He had a giant hockey goalie bag. I don't know if you ever played hockey, but the goalie bags are huge to accommodate all the goalie pads and the extensive equipment that a goalie wears. So inside that bag, it was like one of those Russian dolls. You unzip the bag, and then there was large Ziploc bags. And inside the large Ziploc bags, there were medium Ziploc bags. And inside the medium Ziploc bags, there were small, super organized, ridiculous. And as a 17-year-old Chris Ford, I just thought that that was the way wrestlers did things. So it was a really unique experience. Great guy,
Did you
though.
walk
Awesome,
in?
awesome, sweet, nice guy.
Did you walk into your first independent show with a giant hockey bag?
I did not. I probably had an oversized duffel bag at that time. Not quite a hockey bag, but a nice sized duffel bag. I hadn't gotten like the wheelie worker bags yet, or at that time, guys, some of the veterans would actually have their tights in a Halliburton suitcase. But I had an oversized duffel bag that I probably bought at like Modell's or Sports Authority or something. Probably left over from like high school football or something like that.
As far as you guys, when you're training, you see him training in his full wrestling gear. Did any of the trainees decide to follow suit and and come and put on the boots, tights, and oil before they trained, or what?
No one did that. That was just a Mike thing. And at that time, I was Mike's first student, and none of us had proper tights yet. We all had like sweats and shorts and stuff like that. And spandex wasn't readily available in the sports store the way it was now. Once in a while, if you would go to Sports Authority or a Modell's or a sporting goods store, you might find uh, gym shorts and spandex like down to the knee. Very, very occasionally, you might be able to find a spandex tank top, but those were few far and in between. And that was a time when that stuff wasn't mainstream yet, so it was super expensive. But I worked out in spandex shorts that I had gotten at the sporting goods store and the spandex tank top. In no way, shape, or form were they proper ring tights, but they look good.
Yeah, did your parents ever come in to see this? Because I know you started at 17. If I had a 16-year-old kid who was training with this older man that was all oiled up in
Yep.
tights, I might be a bit concerned.
My parents would drive me down initially 2, 3 days a week just to see what it was about. Uh, they signed a waiver so that I could participate. They were not thrilled about me wanting to be a pro wrestler at all, but they were supportive and they knew how badly I wanted to do it. And we kind of had this agreement as long as my grades stayed really, really good in school and I still agreed to pursue a career in college that they would support my wrestling dream slash endeavor. So for the first 2, 3 months, they would drive down. Mike Sharp's school was about an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half from home. There was a friendlies nearby. They would go to friendlies for like 3.5 hours, and I would be working out in Mike Sharp's school. And then after they saw what was going on and they kind of knew what was going on, I started driving myself down. And a good friend of mine, Rocco, who was actually a substitute teacher at my high school and a huge wrestling fan, we bonded over wrestling. He heard about the school through me. He always wanted to be a wrestling manager, so he joined the school to be trained as a manager, and he would drive down and we would go down together. And it was just a great time, man. It was definitely out there. It was cool.
Did Iron Mike Sharp help you get any enhancement match bookings? Because I understand with some people he did help and others he didn't. I think for Nova he didn't
Yeah,
necessarily help him.
some of the guys he helped, other guys he didn't. I'm really not sure what was his criteria for helping someone get enhancement work, but uh, me personally, he did not get me any enhancement work. Maybe in hindsight, like if you look back earlier on in my career through ECW and also my first run through WCW as Devon Storm as a cruiserweight, I had my body covered up. I really was kind of like I had strong legs for football, but I was always kind of a fat, awkward kid. Tried my best to get in shape for pro wrestling, and it was just a long process. Once I got involved in pro wrestling, I really started taking the diet and working out a whole lot more seriously. But starting from being mush, that took time. So maybe that was a factor that I really didn't look that impressive to bring me up to WWE or anything like that.
I remember reading about you in the magazines because Devon is my name and you had the name Devon
Yes.
Storm, so I always found that interesting. I was always following your career.
Also, it was a
Where
cool
did you
name,
get
man.
that name?
You got a cool name. So I'll go back. It's a really weird story. I always liked the last name Storm, like the Marvel character Storm. I was always a huge fan of pro wrestling. There was a guy that was in like WCW for like a minute, JW Storm. And I'm like, that's a really cool last name. When I was 16, I dated some girl down summertime, summer loving at the beach. And she was from a town called Devon, Pennsylvania. And I always liked the word Devon. I thought it sounded cool. I thought it sounded badass yet really cool. So I threw Devon together with Storm and Devon Storm, and I adapted a more, I guess, high flying in ring style. So I became Dangerous Devon Storm. So yeah, you got a cool badass name, man. I love it.
Thank you. And as far as the indies, you're still on the indie scene. What's been the biggest difference between then and now? Because I understand it from a promoter, that the pay hasn't changed much over the
Mhm.
years, like the people starting, which is kind of interesting considering inflation. But
Mhm.
what have been the major changes you've noticed?
There's lots of changes. First of all, when I broke in, me and my very close friend Ace Darling, we wrestled each other a lot. We were also a tag team. But when we first started out, we were usually the opening match on most cards because we do some high flying stuff, get the crowd into what we were doing. And we were by far the smallest guys on all these shows. And you fast forward to 2023, the guys are smaller, they're more fit, more athletic. I'm one of the larger guys. So that's a mind F right there. When your whole career is spent being a smaller guy and wrestling like a smaller guy, and now you have the option to wrestle as a bigger guy, base more, but still do some high flying stuff. It's a pretty cool dynamic. Uh, Another big change was when my son was first born in 2007. A lot of guys asked me, "Is your kid going to be a pro wrestler?" I said, "Absolutely not." At that time, and when I came up, you know that pro wrestling could be a dangerous, self-destructive culture. I loved seeing all those guys that I grew up watching. But you know this as well as I do. A lot of those guys have some bad, dangerous habits. A lot of that culture is gone. You still have a handful of guys that tear shit up still. But for the most part, I think guys have learned from the generation before us. A lot of those guys are dead or in really bad shape, not just from wrestling, but from the crazy lifestyle that they led on the road to substance abuse and stuff like that. I think that the culture is calmed down. It's more responsible. Again, there are guys that go nuts still, but it doesn't dominate the culture. So now, like my parents did for me, if my son came to me and said he wanted to be a pro wrestler, I would say the same thing. As long as you have something to fall back on and you have a career to fall back on and you're smart about it and you're not doing anything that's going to harm you or be self-destructive, I have no problem at all with my son being a pro wrestler. Uh, a lot of the independent shows, another thing, when I broke in, they were uh, indies used to draw more, I think. And I think part of that was that you would see match types on independent shows. Like you would see Chris Candido, you would see a Jerry Lynn, you would see a Sabu, you would see myself doing a style that you wouldn't see on regular TV. So there was a novelty of going to an independent show. You would see that style. You would see guys that came off of with the TV that were fresh stars, for lack of a better word. But now you're seeing all that on the TV. So while it's great that that style and that technical style exists on the with the indies, they're seeing great technical wrestling on the TV. So that specialness, if that's a word, you know what I'm saying, is not the same as it was years ago because that style you saw on the independence years ago, you weren't seeing on the TV. Uh, and that was a big, big difference.
I was around for like the tail end of you had to be a partier to be accepted in wrestling. Do you think it's interesting that before, like, you wouldn't fit in with the boys if you didn't drink a lot or be into partying, to now, if you are like that, you're going to be the outcast. It's like
Yep.
totally reversed. And I know in another interview, I heard you say you were being made fun of for studying in the back.
Yeah. I've been an outcast my whole life, and I'm not saying it for sympathy. If it helps other people strive to know things are going to be great, that's fine. I grew up, I definitely had undiagnosed ADD. They didn't diagnose kids with that when I was young. You were just the weird kid. I was very overweight. I had a very severe speech impediment, uh, which is kind of weird because the people see the promos that I do now, and kids from high school, or well, not kids, people that I went to high school with said, "Wow, I can't believe how eloquently you speak on these promos and how well delivered they are." I was a horrific stutterer. I was a really, really weird kid. I was definitely the outcast. I probably had one friend and he had no friends. So uh, pro wrestling was an escape, and I listened to my dad, I listened to my parents, and they said, whenever you go into a new job, you want to keep your nose clean, you want to be well behaved, be polite, don't cause no trouble. So I carried that with me. Unfortunately, pro wrestling is bizarro world, and uh, I learned quickly that well, the guys were wild. They were into drugs. They were into alcohol. They were into the partying and stuff like that. And that was just never my thing. I honestly don't think I drank alcohol till I was probably 24 years old. Very late bloomer. I was a total outcast, nerd, heavy, stuttering kid, and I wasn't always this cool guy I am right now. So in ECW, yeah, I when I went to ECW, it was out of Philadelphia primarily. They would go as north as Boston, as far south as like Maryland. I was a full time student, so I was trying to pursue wrestling, and I was trying to pursue being a full time student at the same exact time. And that was during a time when there was no online classes. You had to physically go to class and participate and sit there and arrive. So during that with that time span, I literally had no social life whatsoever. What the social life I had was whoever I drove to and from the shows with in the cars from Friday to Sunday. Usually Little Guido, guys like the Inferno Kid, Ace Darling, uh, all the New Jersey guys, and that was the extent of my social life. Even in WCW, I thought it would be a bigger company, so more serious, and I would have to really watch myself. And well, the guys were kind of wild there too, and I just never kind of fit in. I'm not feeling bad for myself. Fast forward to 2023, I'm doing way, way better for not fitting in. I'm healthier. I'm really happy with the way my life has gone. But yeah, I definitely didn't fit the wrestling culture. I fit it more now than then. So you could argue that I was ahead of my time. I was probably the first guy with who brought his video game system to the hotel room. I brought my Sega Genesis and the original Nintendo on the road with me. And one night I remember vividly in ECW when they asked me to go out with the guys, and I was kind of tired. I had a long week at school, I had tests, and I just wanted to relax and play my video game. I said no, and my video game system was thrown across a hotel room by a veteran wrestler. And what are you gonna do? At that time, it's a caste system. You can't say nothing. You just take it. It's all part of the process. So yeah, it was. I never really fit in. Uh, I think I fit in now more than then, though, and I think I'm better off for
Well, you are drinking wine now, where a lot of them don't drink at all. Probably that's
it.
for the better. But that is a fitting question right there. What is the inspiration for your timeless promos with the red wine?
I started doing like this eyes wide shut looking thing with the masks and the bodyguard and with the leather and this and that. Probably in like 2014, and that was kind of the look I had. I had like the nose ring. I gradually got the tattoos, and then one summer I was hanging out in the pool. It was uh, Danny Doring, Roadkill, Bull James, Little Guido, and for whatever reason, it got on the discussion of me, and my friends make fun of me a lot. They always say, and I'm not being snarky at all, but this is what they go. Well, they'll say, "Dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? You got a good business, you got a great job." They said, "Why the hell are you still wrestling?" And you know this too, man. When we broke in, it wasn't proper. It wasn't encouraged. It wasn't normal to express how much you enjoyed the business. You never want to show your cards. At this point in the game, when we're sitting down, I say, I just fucking love pro wrestling. I enjoy it. I love going out there. I love still doing it at a high level. It's something that I enjoy doing. I freaking love wrestling. So they go, you know, we see you doing this, and you change the look. At what's the character? And I go, I have no idea. I'm just going out there, having a good time, doing athletic stuff, and just feeding my wrestling addiction. And then and Danny Touring goes and give him credit for it. He goes, why don't you just be Chris Ford if you were a total dick? You know, you're doing good. You have a good business. You wrestle for WCW. You kind of got you got your dream there. You're just doing this because you're good at it and you like doing it. Just be a dick. And I never pursued it yet. And then uh, 2019, the end of 2019, uh, out of nowhere, I get a shot for where Ring of Honor, me, the bodyguard guy that is in my videos. He was actually, that's a cool story. A patient of mine, non wrestler, huge guy, patient, came into my clinic for a tendonitis. We hit it off. We become friends. We talk wrestling, bond over wrestling. I sent him to a local wrestling school. Fast forward later, he's with me as a bodyguard and a tag partner, and the woman in our group is my wife. We all go to Ring of Honor at the end of 2019. We do Final Battle in January. We do free Enterprise, that pay per view. They did the free with the free pay per view, and then COVID hits and the world locks down. Uh, so there are shows going on at this time here, there, few far, and in between. I get calls for shows, but then I have to make the very hard decision. Well, actually, it wasn't hard. I have to support my family. New Jersey, if you went out in any kind of public setting like that, or a show, or left the state, you had to quarantine, which would have totally destroyed my business. I have to be in work to see my patients, and a lot of them are there to see me. I have a 4-person staff, but a lot of those patients want to see me. So for that time, I had to refrain from enjoying my professional wrestling. And so I just kind of came up with this promo idea, started doing the promos. They were very raw at the beginning. And then one of the podcasts that I did prior to Ring of Honor was with Robert Frank, the guy that does those gym promos. He's one of my favorite guys on social media. New Jersey guy. Went down to his podcast live, and he was a master at using these editing tools. So during COVID, we couldn't get together, but he gave me a one-on-one tutorial over the phone. He told me to get a notepad, and I learned how to use the iMovie app. And I wrote down notes, and I use those notes to produce the promos myself. Backgrounds, fade in, fade out, letters, the music, the whole 9 yards. And that was a very empowering thing. Uh, you could always find guys, you know this, there's always guys looking to cut their teeth in pro wrestling that say they'll help you out with videos, they'll shoot and edit this for you. I've never felt comfortable with stuff like that. I feel bad. I feel like I'm putting a guy out. And when I do stuff for wrestling, I am a perfectionist, especially with the promos. So if I had somebody there filming a promo for me and I did the promo and I wasn't thrilled with it, I would feel bad saying, hey, can we do it again? And if I didn't like that, hey, can we do it again? I feel like he's being nice enough to film this for me and edit. I don't want to put him out. So then I became empowered to do this myself, and it was awesome. If I came up with the idea for a promo at 11 at night, I had my studio, I could go down, I could film it, I could do it. If something happened on wrestling that I wanted to comment on or do a video on, there was no delay. I could go and do it. If I needed to shave, I would go shave, throw some fake tanner on my face so I looked mildly brown. I would do my hair, get in a suit, and I would be able to do the promo on demand. And I was able to use that to do a lot of highlight videos as well. And you know this too. When we broke in, if you had an idea that you wanted to share with a promoter, I'm this character, this is what I'm about, I would love to come and work for you, yada, yada, yada. We had 8x10s, and maybe you might have been able to, with a VHS camera, film a match here or there. But the most you would be able to do is show the promoter that 8x10. Maybe he would watch your match, maybe he wouldn't. And if you were lucky enough to get an audience with that promoter, you would hope that you would be able to explain your vision for a character, what your character is, and then hope that he would be able to see it by what you explained. Now, in 2023, with all these apps and stuff like that, you can, if you work hard, if you learn how to use the software, if you apply yourself, and if you hustle and put the time in, you can show the promoter exactly what you mean. If you go to my page, there's a few highlight videos. You know, some are character mixed with moves. The promos are all character. There are some clips that are all moves. But you have the tools at your disposal to show a promoter, to show a big company, to show whoever, to show the fans who you are, what you can do, and what your character is about.
That is true. It's a lot easier now. You can just send links as well. You don't have to pay that extra shipping for sending your VHS
VHS
tape in.
tape.
Rick Martel wants to know your thoughts on Bam Bam Bigelow passing away, being a fellow New Jersey boy.
I was working with Bam Bam in WCW was awesome. Simply because it's one of those mark out moment things. I was a Jersey guy, but I watched Bam Bam as a fan on both WWF and WCW before I got into wrestling, got into WCW. So being able to work with a guy like that, somebody that I grew up watching, that I enjoyed watching, was fantastic. He was always a great guy to me. Loved working with him, and I was very, very sad when he passed away.
A lot of people want to know about your relationship with Daphne, who also passed away.
She was awesome. I'd gotten a call from WCW. I had been doing the Saturday night show as Devon Storm. I was being groomed to be brought up as like the next a cruiserweight, and an aggressive cruiserweight that would sometimes bend the rules, use guardrails, steps, chairs, but was still a technical wrestler, kind of a gothic version of the Devon Storm that they had there before. And sometime in there, Vince Russo took over, and David Flair was there. He was getting a rating, what they would track the ratings, and people loved watching David Flair for whatever reason. David was able to capture the audience. Uh, the only drawback was David Flair was not a very strong in ring performer, so they really couldn't do a lot with him in ring. So they came up with an idea: let's put him in a team with somebody that's proficient and let the partner do the majority of the wrestling. So I got a call uh, late, I think it was 99, and they said, we're going to put you in a feud with, no, not what they didn't tell me, that involved David Flair and Daphne and Vampiro and this and that. And I wasn't sure what that meant because for a while I knew Jimmy Hart was also pushing uh, the possibility of teaming me with Vampiro. So I show up, they put me with David and Daphne, and we all hit it off immediately. Shannon was just such a great, sweet person. I say it time and time again. Uh, when she would walk in the room, she would light up a room. Always positive, always smiles. With the fans, she was phenomenal. Like we all take times for our fans. Sign this, shake a hand, take a picture. She would take excessive amounts of time to really show her fans how much she cared about them. I saw her with little kids time and time again, and it wasn't just a picture. Hey, what's your name? How is school? What grade are you in? What do you like to play? Do you play this sport? Do you play that sport? What kind of toys you like? She would really engage those kids and really embrace uh, her character with them, and she was just phenomenal with the people. She was always great to travel with, up until the very very end. I would share her. I would share with her my timeless ideas, ideas for moves, uh, ideas of what I could do in the room, and I was so shocked. She seemed so very positive at the end. We spoke about a week before, and then really don't know what happened. She didn't share the fact that she was having any struggles at all. We always had great conversation. Like my time is short, but uh, when I would do cardio and I would hop on the bike, I'm good for 45 minutes, 15 minutes, if not an hour and 15 of cardio, and we would have these long conversations about wrestling and ideas and stuff like that. And yeah, just an outstanding, sweet, great soul, and very, very missed. Some of my best times in this business were spent with her. She was awesome.
Did you have much interaction with Ric Flair, given that you were working with David Flair?
A little bit. Rick was always really cool, and he would frequently thank me for working with his son and trying to teach him. And you know, and and, and I'm not saying this to be sarcastic. He would thank me for like carrying him along and picking up the load for the stuff that he couldn't do. And he was very appreciative, very very cool, and yeah, just great. Not we didn't speak often, but it was always a hi and a handshake at least, and very very often he would just give me a quick thank you.
We always hear about that time in WCW, even though he's working with his family. He liked some parts of that. He was having really bad mental health struggles, and he didn't feel he was being treated right. Did you pick up on that? How did the locker room view Ric Flair at that time?
It's not a cop out at all, and I say this on a lot of interviews. I was naive and oblivious. I was a young kid, thrilled to be in the second largest company on the planet, and just being able to live out my dream. I went there. I did what I was told. I enjoyed being there. I really didn't get too involved in office politics. I really didn't go out a lot, and in hindsight, that's probably one of the things that hurt me, maybe. Because now, and you know that that's such a crucial component of professional wrestling networking. Again, trying, I was trying to keep my nose clean, trying to be a good employee, not be one of these guys that gets arrested or check marks against him or anything like that. And in hindsight, well, they probably counted against me.
Yeah, back in those days, were you around for the Juventud Guerrera thing in Australia?
I missed it by 5 minutes. I went to the gym, got back to the hotel, and everybody was down in the lobby. And I got to hear what we missed.
Yeah, I don't know why that just popped into my head. Steve wants to know who came up with the name Crowbar. I believe it was Vince Russo,
It was
but
Vince Russo. Prior to my character debuting, David Flair was going around hitting people at random with a crowbar. He had lost his mind with the character, and he was going around whacking people with a crowbar backstage. So there's a skit you could find on YouTube where him and Daphne pull into a gas station. I'm the guy there pumping the gas. He asked me what my name is. I said some people call me Crowbar, and we connect off of that, and the rest is history.
now I imagine you have positive thoughts of Vince Russo because he seemed to have used you the best.
Mm-hmm.
So, so you had overall good interactions with him, and I think you're still friends with him to this day.
I have a lot of good interactions with a lot of people. This is just me. I'm a very grateful person. I've gotten more than I deserve. I still can't believe that I've gotten to do a lot of the things that I have been able to do in pro wrestling. Uh, I'm friends with a lot of people. It's funny. Jim Cornette has done great things for me. I can never talk bad about Jim Cornette. Vince Russo, to get along with Jim Cornette, has done great things for me. I can't say anything bad about Vince Russo. Vince introduced my character, gave me an opportunity that I otherwise probably would not have had. Uh, when he came back the second time, he kind of de-emphasized my character, but at that time, the priority was this new blood thing with the veterans, and I just wasn't one of those guys. Eric Bischoff gave me my first contract, and it was not a huge amount of money, but it was a foot in the door. And for 3 years, it enabled me to get paid to save my money, and that money uh, gave me a significant down payment on my first house, which was a huge head start in life and enabled me to do many, many things. When you see people in pro wrestling, there's a lot of disgruntled, miserable people. Hey, I gave my all for Vince, then he fired me, and this and that. I worked for Eric Bischoff for X amount of years, and he fired me, and this and that. Uh, Vince Russo brought me in, and then he squashed me. Uh, in business, and especially in pro wrestling, and I was taught this very early on. Nobody owes you anything, and you try to make the most of the opportunities you're given. Sometimes you're going to do well, sometimes you're not, but no company in pro wrestling or any other place on the earth is obligated to keep you doing a certain thing indefinitely. We all have a shelf life unless you're a huge star, and that's a hard reality that I think a lot of the younger fans, not fans, younger wrestlers need to know, and they need to prepare for the time when our shelf life is over. I have this conversation with a lot of younger wrestlers where they ask me for advice. And I say, okay, I was in World Championship Wrestling for 3 years when at that time it was the second largest company in with the planet on 3 times a week, Nitro, Thunder, often on Saturday night. I had the cruiserweight, the hardcore, and the tag belts. Do you consider me a wrestling success? And they usually say yes. I said, would you like to have that? Would you like to have that happen to you? And would you be happy with that? And they all say, yes, that'd be awesome. I, in no way, shape, or form, made enough money to sustain me or a family, forget a family, for the rest of my life in those 3 years, although many would consider me a professional wrestling success. I get hot when I hear interviews, and I'm sure it's meant well. It's meant to help people, but I get hot when I hear people say you have to focus everything on one thing because if you have a plan B, you're admitting that you might fail. Well, in real life, you might fail. There's thousands of great pro wrestlers out there that will never see TV time. There's millions probably of great singers all over the world that will never see an album cover or uh, a Grammy Awards or like a concert in a big venue. There's millions of comedians that are real funny and probably funnier than guys on there doing a Netflix special, and they'll never get their shot. So you have to have a plan B. And I say if you want it bad enough, find a plan B. I like again, and I'm not patting myself on the back. I was happy to. I went to school full time before online classes where I had to show up and go to school. And I did independent shows on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday came around. I did it all again. No social life, no hanging out, no party, no anything like that. So you have to have that thing to fall back on, and just I have no idea how we got here now. Oh, so going back to like ventures. So there's many people that have helped me that necessarily don't get along with each other, and they may have given me an opportunity, and they may have ended that opportunity. And I'm grateful for just the opportunity. Uh, Nobody owes you to keep you employed for the rest of your life, and that's a fact of life in wrestling or any venue. I just it doesn't make sense to me when I hear a lot of guys that had their run in pro wrestling and they did well, and then they badmouth, the head of the organization or a company somewhere just because you know you've run your course. You have to find something else to do, and you have to prepare to find something else to do. So, with the last thing I want to say on this, there's a lot of guys that have given me shots, a lot of guys that have ended those shots, taken those shots away. I am so grateful, so happy for any shot I've ever gotten, especially since I know there's probably thousands of wrestlers out there at that time uh, that were probably better than me, and I was just lucky and blessed enough to have been chosen.
Very good. And you seem like you're a very reliable person, and you're obviously a good technician and good size and good looks. So I'm sure that helped as well. Somebody says the Crowbar gas station was the same one where Eric Watts was beat up by Arn Anderson a few years before. Do you know if
I
that's
have no
true or not?
idea. I'm not sure. I know the gas station was in Salisbury, Maryland, because remember getting a call, and Crowbar was born in Salisbury, Maryland. That's where the gas station was.
Is it true that you were released just before WCW went out of business?
Yes,
Or so you had time left on your contract that if it had just held off a little bit longer, you would have been able
probably.
to sit at home?
Again,
Uh,
would have been nice, but just grateful for everything that I've gotten. And I know that's cliche to say, but in hindsight, I got no complaints, man. I got to do a lot of cool shit and a lot of cool shit that I never expected to be able to do. I'm still going and I still love this stuff. So yeah, would have been nice, but hey, in hindsight, you know, life is good.
Yeah. Little Cherry wants to know if you had interactions with Virgil or Bobby Duncan Jr., two of the West Texas Rednecks.
Never had any interactions with Bobby, but I see Virgil here or there. I actually wrestled Virgil once on an independent show, and he was always cool around me, always fun. Virgil's Virgil, and you know, no complaints.
Somebody says you always put on the best matches with Battleground. That I think they're having a show at the ECW Arena with you WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah, there's gonna be actually two shows during the daytime show. I will be wrestling Facade, who I can't wait to go up against again, and then there's going to be a nighttime show, which is an ECW reunion type show, but they haven't announced my opponent. I know who it is, but I got to kind of, uh, I got to honor the guy that booked me, and I can't announce yet who my opponent is.
Someone asked earlier any interactions with Hulk Hogan backstage in WCW.
Uh, yeah, he was always cool to me. For whatever reason, he made me Polish. He uh, he would always say, "Hey, Crowbarski." I was always Crowbarski. I have no idea why, but I loved it. It was cool. It was always super cordial to me, always super nice. My biggest regret is that this too, going back. With the cell phone cameras weren't that great back then, going back to like 99, 2000 or so. So you really couldn't get a good photo. They're very pixelated, and I didn't want to carry around. We were always taught that it was unprofessional to get pictures with all these guys. I was in the same locker room with Hulk Hogan countless times, and I never got my picture, and I really regret that. I have to sometime in the near future, maybe when I go to Florida or something. I have to get my Hulk Hogan picture.
Yeah,
Priority to it.
I don't even think cell phone pictures existed unless you were super rich
Yep.
until into the 2000s. Brian wants to know if you met Chuck Palumbo.
I worked with Chuck Palumbo. I had one of my favorite Devon Storm Saturday night matches is against Chuck Palumbo. I know it's on YouTube because I've seen it. If you look up Devon Storm, Chuck Palumbo, it's there. Chuck was a great guy. He looked awesome. I don't know what he's doing these days, but I always enjoyed talking to him. Always enjoyed his company. Real super chilled out guy. Uh, I miss him.
How was working for WWE during that cruiserweight tournament that they did back in around, I think, 97?
It was absolutely surreal. At that time, I was a full time physical therapy student. Uh, you go from college to physical therapy school. When you get in there, the grind is just worse. It's a lot more serious. And at that time, I was doing my internship. So they send you to a hospital, they send you to an outpatient facility where you work, and you're graded upon your clinical competence and things like dressing appropriately and showing up on time and this, that, the other thing. And I got the call to do those light heavyweight matches. Thank God I had a very understanding clinical instructor. I had very understanding people back at school, and I was able to do those appearances as long as I got my work in advance and I made arrangements to get the work done on time, either before or right when I got back. So being in that situation and flying out to do this stuff was unheard of. My classmates thought it was really cool. I thought it was outrageous, and just doing WWE TV. I had a match with Taka, with Brian Christopher. I had two matches with Ace Starling, one on Raw, one on Shotgun Saturday night. Again, just one of the many, many cool things. It was not long lived, but it was something really cool and special that I remember vividly. I remember getting a call and saying, "Okay, how am I going to get permission to do this? Will it really work out? Will God let this work out so that I can do both?" And it always happened. And just another one of those things. Just super super grateful. Got way more than I deserved, and you know just wow.
Now, of course, you said you kept to yourself. You were at the bottom of the totem pole, not even under contract in WWE. I remember the night after the Survivor Series in Montreal, you wrestled in Ottawa. I, th- was it either a dark match or a cruiserweight
I
tournament
think it was Taka
match?
Michinoku. I think, yeah, the Taka
Taka
Michinoku
Michinoku.
first round of
Yeah.
the tournament.
How was the environment backstage? It must have just been buzzing the night after that.
Well, I had no idea what had gone on. I did not watch the show because I flew in the night before. So as the pay per view was going on, all that went on, and I was on an airplane, and then I landed and got to the hotel, and I showed up at TV the next day, and it like you could feel the weird tension. It was in the air. You could cut it with a knife, and then I you hear the guys talking, and you hear about the finish. I'm like, wow, that sounds odd. That doesn't sound right. This, that, the other thing, and then you hear more and more guys talking about it. Some of the guys were angry about it, saying it was an unprofessional thing to do. It was a double cross. How do you trust the guy that does that? And you had some guys admittedly saying that they understand why it was done. Uh, I was just there keeping my mouth shut and just taking in. But for me as a professional and as a fan, being in with the WWF locker room, hearing what went on was just mind blowing. When it's just something that doesn't happen. So it was really a big occurrence, and yeah. But I just kept my mouth about it. What am I going to say? Hell am I going
Yeah,
to say
nothing,
about it?
but you'd have to think that other than maybe the night after Owen Hart's death, that would have been like one of the most locker room buzz talks ever.
Yep, yep.
Someone's asking your thoughts on the Sean O'Hare suicide.
Uh, I really didn't know Sean O'Hare that much after WCW. He trained a lot at the power plant. I honestly thought he was going to be like the next Goldberg. He looked like a Greek statue. His athleticism was incredible, incredibly agile for a guy that size. He had a badass look. I thought he had all the tools. I really don't know why he wasn't used better or pushed a certain way. I was very shocked and very disappointed to hear that he'd gone ahead and committed suicide. All my interactions at the power plant with him was great. I did do I believe it was a Sunday Night Heat against Sean as Crowbar. Jobber match, but competitive. They gave me a lot of stuff, which was kind of cool, and it was great working with Sean. But that was the last time that I had seen him.
Was there any reason that you were given why WWE never picked you up? I guess it was a bad time where everyone WCW just closed right after you were released, and there
Yeah,
was all these free agents.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That the time was bad. Like there actually was discussion early on in my career when I was doing the light heavyweight stuff. That was prior to WWF and WCW having an on the road trainer. There actually was with discussions back and forth that once I graduated, that they would bring me on to be a late opening match preliminary guy or a cruiserweight guy, and that I would double as the on the road physical therapist actually way back when. And then after WCW uh, was purchased, I had several dark matches, and there's plenty of guys in this business that are delusional. Say, "Oh, I was over huge, got a big pop, this and the other thing." I got a great reaction at Madison Square Garden in Philadelphia at the Hartford Civic Center, and it just didn't pan out. I have no idea why. Probably, like you said, there was so many guys coming in from WCW, from ECW. There was just so much talent coming in to one spot, and I just wasn't the guy to make it. You wonder why? I think I worked well. The people reacted well, and it just didn't happen. But in hindsight, and it's I always say me getting signed, not getting signed to WWE was the best thing to not happen to me. Had I got signed, I would never have met my wife. Never would have probably never would have opened my business. Had my two kids. So it's cliche. I don't want to be preachy at all. I just said it, but God has a plan for everybody. And had I got signed, which is what I thought I wanted more than anything at that time there, uh, my life would not be where it is now, and I'm thrilled with where I am right now. So at that time, it was a huge disappointment. But again, me not being signed to the World Wrestling Federation at the time, WWF, or was it WWE? I'm really not sure. Best thing to not happen to me.
Did I hear right that you got to wrestle in Madison Square Garden?
Yes, I did. And so I've been actively trying to hunt down that video. There's a guy out there. Uh, I've I've managed to hunt down my dark match with John Cena that I'm going to be purchasing. I managed to hunt down my dark match with Rick Fuller at the Hartford Civic Center, and I believe the match I did with Mike Bell with Daphne in my corner for WWE in Philadelphia is also on that list. So I'm looking very forward to seeing those matches. You know, just for myself and also to show the kids.
Where was the John Cena match?
Philadelphia and
Okay.
at
At,
and at
at the
Madison Square
Spectrum?
Garden. I think First Union, whatever
First
followed the
Union.
Spectrum,
Hey,
the next
well,
building.
you got to wrestle John Cena at the First Union Center. That's
Yeah,
something to brag about.
yeah. And then Madison Square Garden against El Gran Apollo.
And apparently, according to Tom here, you also had a dark match against CM Punk. Is
Never
this
worked with
true?
CM Punk. No.
Huh.
Punk
Tom,
had a match
you're
that night. Punk had a
oh,
match, but it wasn't against me.
okay. As far as Scott Hall and Nash, someone's asking about them and Scott Steiner. How were your interactions with them?
They're all always great. Ace, Darling, and myself worked the Outsiders back-to-back job matches on a Nitro again during college, doing the tag team thing. Uh, I still see Scott at shows out there, and it's all always great to see him. Uh, Unfortunately, they both got to live with the fact that Scott and Nash lost the tag team titles to both me and David Flair, and that's going to haunt them the rest of their life, unfortunately. But they're great guys.
And of course, I understand you were a big
We had some
fan of
help from
Terry
Arno.
Funk.
Oh, of course.
Well, no one remembers. No one was watching WCW back then, so you could
Yeah.
just say you beat them.
Yep. Oh, yeah, it was a
But
squash. We
actually,
squashed them. It was great.
but yeah, Terry Funk, you won the hardcore title in WCW from him. That must have been quite a highlight.
So one of my favorite matches of all time is Flair Funk, the I Quit match, New York Knockout. And I say this all the time. That was a hardcore match before the term hardcore was coined yet. They went all over the ring. They used a table, chairs, guardrails. It was a violent, great match. And from that point on, I was always a gigantic Terry Funk fan. I enjoyed watching him show up in ECW and all the work that he did there. And then again, like I said before, my whole time WCW, I'm enjoying myself, just enjoying the ride. So to wrestle Terry Funk on Starrcade, which is WCW's version of WrestleMania for the hardcore belt, was just a mind blowing experience.
His experience was so mind-blowing that it blew him right up off the channel. I have no idea what happened there, but thank you everybody for watching. What a way to end it. He just said he blew up, and he blew up right off the channel. Thank you. Please like this video, give it a thumbs up, and click the subscribe button. Help me out. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news